Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me here on this hump day as we get through the first week or so of the Steelers offseason, my good friend and pal, one Zach Flash Celadonia. And Zach, it's crazy out there, man. How's it going?
It is crazy. Great. Everything's fantastic, man. I love being an adult and working 75% of my life. It's awesome. Only having 2 days off and you work 5 days, which feels like way more than you should. But I other than that, I'm doing fantastic.
And here you are, putting in some more time, putting in the man hours.
Yeah, because I do it for the people. I'm not here for myself. I'm here for the viewers and the listeners.
I was doing the old Step Brothers quote there, and it was like putting in the man hours, black leather gloves. It was like security. We put liquid paper on a bee, and it died. And, that's the way I feel with a lot of Twitter, Facebook, social media. I think that Matt Canada, we're just going to throw it out there right now. I think Matt Canada is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, much like Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, talking quarterbacks and everything that we did during the entire offseason through most of the season. And now it's just everywhere I look, every 2 seconds, you got some hill jack with some sort of opinion. You know what they say opinions are like. And it's like the bunghole, and it smells too. But man, everybody else that jumps on this bandwagon, if any of you pay attention to Pittsburgh media, there's a different tweet every day about a different rumor, about a different thing that has something to do with Matt Canada. And quite frankly, I find it a little gross and disgusting for how quick people are just on the human side of this. You want somebody fired. I understand your favorite football team didn't win the Super Bowl this year and you're pissed off about it. But man, it's like, does that give you the right? And everybody thinks they're clever too. That's like, in another hour, somebody else will be like, is Matt Canada fired yet? Because, whatever place that you're at, you haven't seen it 1,000 times by somebody else.
Can't wait to be the 26th ranked offense again next year.
But yeah, now all the Yinzers, they're
Thanks
really
a lot, Steelers.
Yeah, they're really up in their feels, aren't they? Because that'll be our first topic of discussion is reportedly, and I just got done saying whatever about the Pittsburgh media and running their mouths and everything, but reportedly Matt Canada, well, I shouldn't say reportedly, Burt Lawton of the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was reportedly earlier in the day, but Burt Lawton of the Pittsburgh Steelers says Matt Canada will return with the team. And everybody was like, oh, what's taking so long? And blah, blah, blah. And Mike Tomlin has a personal matter and this and that. And it's like, God forbid that these people actually have a life outside of football. You were just talking about working however many hours a day, however many days a week. You go home. You think about your job when you go home. You entertain, maybe some people do. Do you get work calls as you're
I just got home and I couldn't be further away from that place right now mentally. And that couldn't be further from the truth, man. I do not think about work while I'm not there. And if you're a real football guy, you would know by now that most NFL business gets done throughout the week by about 4:35 at the latest, i.e. those dudes go home. They go home. And a lot of times on weekends, mainly Sundays, stuff doesn't happen at all. So there were a lot of times here where the office was just empty. And I know everybody wanted Canada fired, but I'm not going to tell anybody how to feel. That's what I first want to say, because I get as mad as anybody when the Steelers don't do what I want them to do, which is often. But at the same time, I would feel a lot worse about this. I'd be pissed off if they made this announcement like 4 or 5 weeks ago, before the offense started to get better and clearly start to develop some type of chemistry. You can't watch the last 6, 7, 8 games and say to yourself, this offense has done nothing good. It hasn't gotten better at all. And I was right there with the people. I was right there with the angry mob. My torch had the most fire on it. I was ready to get Canada out of here after week 4 or 5, because I felt like they just focused too much on things that weren't going to help the offense, i.e., the quarterback competition that didn't need to be. Not throwing the ball to George Pickens. There's a whole lot of things that were going on early in the year that I was piling on Canada for. But you can't deny that the offense got better throughout the end of the season. And it's funny looking back because I said on this show, I was like about 4 weeks ago, I was like, man, I don't not want the offense to do well. I obviously want Kenny to get better, but we're kind of in a catch-22 here that if the offense does get better and Kenny gets better and the offense gets better and the offensive line gets better and George Pickens plays more, we're probably going to end up possibly with Matt Canada coming back. And I didn't mean to do that to the people. I feel bad if that was my doing, but at the same time, I see where the Steelers are coming from. I think it isn't the same old, oh, they're being complacent. They're sticking with Randy Fichtner for another year, Fichtner, whatever. I think they're sticking with Canada because of the way the season ended out. I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, they're stuck in their ways. They don't want to make change. Believe it. I think if the Steelers would have sucked at the end of the year or the last 2-3 games, I think Canada would have a ticket to Thailand right now to hang out with Cliff Kingsbury. But truth of the matter is, the offense got better and Kenny got better in the line. I already said all that. Like, so all these facets on the offense got better. And it's hard to give Canada so much blame and not give him any credit whatsoever. And we're huge Kenny guys on this show, but like, I mean, man, everybody hates the jet sweep until it works to seal the game versus the Raiders. Am I right? And you give it to Connor Hayward and he goes for 20 yards. And I've been outspoken about the jet sweep. I think it could work a lot better if they would fake it more, but they give it all the time. But I think that can be refined.
Yeah.
Point is, people love to bitch, and I understand that it's sports, but it's really easy to dismiss the times where Canada's made the right call and the offense has done the right thing. Or again, big Kenny guys, Kenny's missed some guys down the field. He has. Like that's one critique that I have a hard time arguing with people or defending, because there were times that during the season, particularly the middle part, where he was a little gun shy with the concussions and just the losing streak. And he got more comfortable as the season went on, which is what I'm trying to explain. So I understand people are going to be mad. I'm for bringing in a new offensive, hip, young mind. But at the same time, you have to see the positives that there are and letting Kenny stay with Canada and letting him grow, because really how Kenny finished and how the offense finished.
Yeah, and I had brought this up before too. Number one, I think we need to preface a little bit of this. There's people with their heads exploding now, looking at us on screen or listening wherever they may be. And thank
absolutely,
you for supporting us.
It's so par for the course. Well, there's Flash again being all positive and seeing the good in things. It's like, dude, this is rare. Like I would be with the mob, like I said, but I do see the lone positives, and I want the Steelers to be good. Like so bad. I'm a very selfish fan. I want the Steelers to be good. So if I thought Canada deserved to be fired after the last few games, I would be very vocal right now, being like, this is the wrong choice. But I'm not seeing it that way currently.
And I'm not going to necessarily go out on a limb and defend the guy. Like,
exactly.
Do I think that they could do better? Absolutely. Do I think they could do worse? Absolutely. And the other thing was just the patience factor of it. And there were folks that were they were jumping all over, up and down. They wanted it announced almost immediately. When's this going to be announced? And then it's like this little like light shines through like over the weekend. It says that the Steelers are anticipating, well, everyone's anticipating Byron Leftwich getting fired in Tampa Bay, who was a very hot commodity to maybe even take a head coaching post just the year before, before Tampa. It was
supposed to be Jacksonville before Peterson got the gig. There was rumors he was going to be Jacksonville's head coach.
Yes. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, that's why the Steelers are waiting. It's like, yeah, that's why they don't operate like everyone else. No knee-jerk reactions, And by the way, Brian Flores, of course, did not get hired. Good luck, Cleveland Browns, with Jim Schwartz. I'm sure he's the answer for all of your problems. So
yeah, he's got a long, successful career. I mean, he's with the Eagles, I guess, for that 1 year, but yeah.
Yeah, he was with the Browns a long time
He's more
ago.
bust than boom.
He was on Bill Belichick's staff back, what is that? Is that the 95 season they did the Football Life on with the Browns, and they talk about...
Schwartz was.
Yeah. They always say, there's something, too, to be said. Like, people aren't beating down the door to talk to any of Mike Tomlin's staff. You know what I mean? What's with his coaching tree? And outside of like a handful of coaches' lifetime, are there a whole bunch? I know somebody will pull one rabbit out of a hat, but Bill Belichick's coaching tree is just full of dead branches. Like you got like Joe Judge, you got Matt Patricia, Charlie Weiss, who I love listening to on the radio. Like he went elsewhere and into college ranks. Romeo Crennel, Bill O'Brien.
Andy Reid's really only got Harbaugh, who was a special teams coach for him.
And that's the thing with Harbaugh too, is like who's come off of John Harbaugh's tree necessarily. You know what I mean? Cowher's had guys the same way Tomlin has that were already established dudes like a Dick LeBeau and a Dom Capers and stuff like that. Arians, yeah. I mean, and they used to hire people like Kevin Gilbride that were also Rams as offensive coordinators and stuff like that too. Chan Gailey, and there's been some horror stories with that as well. So people that are like too young to remember when the Steelers have actually had a losing season is just yeah.
You're talking about me.
I meant to put that in here on our little topics thing, because I was going to say the standard. You know what I mean? What does the standard mean to you and whatever? And people just don't follow the thing with Matt Canada. It's one of two things. Number one, there wasn't a full offseason with Canada and Kenny Pickett. Okay, we've said this a billion times. Go back and listen before, but Kenny was QB. It's QB3. There were a lot of people that were mixed in, like Calvin Austin, Anthony Miller, who just got re-signed, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few too. But now you'll have a full offseason where Kenny is just QB1, and maybe they don't do this half-assed or whatever. People want to blame, quarterback competition. It should have been if there was a real quarterback competition, then maybe they would have won some of these games. Maybe they would have been in the playoffs. But then you bitch and complain that Tomlin hasn't won any playoff games too. And now people are starting to come around to Harbaugh. 1 win in 8 seasons, 2-10 since he last won the Super Bowl when it comes to playoff wins. We talked about Andy Reid only having 1-9 between the Eagles and the Chiefs, 9 consecutive years until Mahomes comes along. So, a lot of this is just teams having patience. And do you think the Chiefs were just sitting there with their playoff appearances or just making it or winning the division or sliding in the wild card? No, they weren't content with that. I'm sure Mike Tomlin isn't content with that. But these ownership groups, legendary teams, you know what I'm talking about, like the Chiefs and the Steelers, and unfortunately the Giants fell off the cliff there, but the Packers, for example, the way these teams have managed and operated, it is a standard of consistency. It's very difficult to win in the NFL. So when you say somebody hasn't had a losing season, okay, that is a standard. They say, well, the standard's been lowered. The standard used to be excellence. It's like, do you not realize this team's in a rebuild? If this were any other franchise, they would have won 2 or 3 games, maybe. This would have been mishandled. Maybe Kenny Pickett's out of the league already. Like any number of things. So it absolutely drives me crazy.
People especially had their mortgages on Tomlin having his first losing season after the first 4 weeks. Like it was done. There was no if. It was settled. It was like he will have his first losing season now. We're witnessing it live time. And spoiler alert, it's not what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to throw in those numbers once again. The Steelers offense, last 9 games, which is after the bye week, starting with the Saints, with the Bengals, Colts, Falcons, Ravens, Panthers, Raiders, Ravens, and Browns. I know that's necessarily a gauntlet of upper echelon teams, but you're still doing this with a rookie quarterback going 7-2, should have been 8-1, averaging almost 21 points per game. Whereas in the beginning, where you had Mitch Trubisky, where we knew he wasn't a guy that was going to throw multiple TD passes and put up a lot of flashy offensive statistics, 15 points per game. And they were scoring at least 20 or close to it in several of these games. And I know folks don't necessarily like playing it close to the vest, but did you see the postseason games? And that's where people are wanting to say
situational football. Football.
Yeah. It's, we talk about like running the football and things of that nature. And that's where we get to, like, folks are saying whether or not the Steelers were better than some of the teams that ended up playing in the postseason. And could they compete with some of these teams? And that's what we'll talk about the playoff offenses in a second. But let's just take it at the baseline here. The baseline being, you certainly thought that the Steelers might have been better than the Dolphins, who squeaked in with a 9-6 win over the Jets. which is good enough to win, which, by the way, the Steelers defense was holding people to far fewer points, too. I should point out, at the beginning of the season, it was 24.6 points per game versus 16.5. So about 8 points fewer per game. And that's enough to win 16.5 when the offense is scoring, what did I say? 20. Yeah. Oh, it's about 20.8. So, yeah, you might keep it close to the vest, but you were looking at, hey, who was better? Really going to be certainly better than the Dolphins. And you saw what the Dolphins did as a divisional opponent with the Buffalo Bills on the road, third string quarterback. And all of a sudden it got thrown into coaching now. And it's like, man, people just want to pick and choose what they want to complain about. It's like, if they would have made the playoffs and then they would have got smoked by one of these teams, and they would still be complaining. So I don't understand what it is that they actually want other than a Super Bowl trophy that one team gets to hold. And everybody's in the race for Sean Payton right now, who's won one in like 15 years with the Hall of Fame quarterback and Drew Brees, and then yada, yada, yada. We can go down the line with that. But I look at some of the teams, I'm like, do you think that the Steelers would have had about the same success as the Dolphins against the Bills, especially with Josh Allen and the turnovers and the aggressive offense and stuff, or anybody else?
I think seeing them like a second time in one season might have helped. Might have helped that the offense was gelling a lot more. I don't know if we would have won, but yeah, I think based off of what Skylar Thompson was able to do, I think the Steelers could have put up a fight.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, not necessarily looking at like the NFC teams, because they wouldn't have played the NFC teams. But I said that the Vikings were pretenders, and we saw the Giants beat them. And somebody made a smart ass comment about like however many wins that the Giants had, or not the Giants, the Vikings. What were they? 12 win, 13 team, like worst whatever win team. And they were trying to slight the Steelers, who actually lost, Bud Dupree and pre-injury Devin Bush actually wasn't a bad inside linebacker. A whole different in a COVID year where, Joe Hayden didn't play those last two games against the Cleveland Browns, the last week and then into the playoffs. You think that made a big difference, not having three of your major defensive starters? Stuff like that just irks me. But the Bengals and Ravens, look what the Ravens did with the Bengals.
Dude, I'm telling you. That's Bangling at its finest, only it flipped in their favor for a change. And I had this thought, like I was rooting for the Ravens, just because like there's that weird respect thing with the Ravens always, like, oh, the Ravens and Steelers, there's a respect there, almost like a brother, like it's your brother, but like your evil brother, depending on which side of the coin you want to be on there, evil or good. But the Bengals are just like, they're scum, dude. Like the Bengals are so hard to respect. Just the hatred is deep with the Bengals, but not because I'm ever worried about the Bengals, just because of how they act and how they've carried themselves as a franchise. They're hard to watch on my TV screen. And I also bet on the Ravens, but I was rooting for the Ravens to win the game. At the same time, when Sam Hubbard took that fumble back 100 yards and he scored, I thought to myself, man, this is like the Bengals finally getting like some kind of payback or like compensation for what happened to them versus Steelers in the playoffs and other teams, because they've always been known to just make stupid decisions and lose the game that they had every right to win until the last like 2 minutes. So this was their payback, like from the football gods, and the Steelers didn't even have to pay it. The Ravens paid for it. So we just had to sit back and watch it all. Everything cancels itself out. So now if we ever meet the Bengals in the playoffs, which I'm sure will happen with Joe Burrow and Kenny Pickett's young careers, now we won't have to worry about the pendulum of karma swinging back, because it already swung back and it hit the Ravens in the ass, not the Steelers.
Yeah. The other one would be the Chargers and Jaguars. And people were already talking about Brandon Staley getting canned. And we were already making fun of the Chargers before this and saying like, geez, they had Drew Brees with like Marty Schottenheimer. And then I don't know, they've had like about 5 coaches.
The Schottenheimer thing to this day is nuts, to fire your head coach after being in the championship game. That remains unseen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and give me 1 second, because I was actually going to pull it up just so.
Maybe John Fox. Did he get fired after losing the Super Bowl? I mean, his time was up, so like that's kind of different. But Schottenheimer still, I felt like, had some in the tank when they did that to him back in the day.
Yeah. Well, they had lost a divisional game, then the conference game. Oh yeah, it was Norv Turner had a lot of success there, and that was the LaDainian Tomlinson times and
He took
stuff
over
like that.
after Marty, I remember.
Yeah, but I mean, you're looking at Schottenheimer, and then Schottenheimer had Drew Brees for about 4 years here before he became like probably one of the biggest free agents ever. Yeah, his rookie deal, and I mean, they made the postseason just the once and lost the wild card game. Then they went and got Phillip Rivers, and they had Rivers forever, and they had Norv Turner. Mike McCoy.
I know, young Rivers was funny in Madden, dude. He had a visor on. He came to the NFL with a visor. People forget that about Rivers, but he wore one, I'm pretty sure, for his whole rookie season too.
Yeah, but Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, and then Brandon Staley is only in his second year, and they're ready to can this guy already, and that was through Rivers and then Herbert. And they always seem to they've had Tomlinson, Ryan Matthews, Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler had like the most touchdowns in the league, and everybody was picking this team to like win the Super Bowl in the preseason.
Happens every year.
Yeah, and it's just like it's one of those things where, again, jumping back to like the standard and are the Steelers better in certain teams? That just would you rather be a fan of that team that they don't have a chip? They don't even have an appearance in the big game, the confetti game. I like that. That's got to be used from now on forever. And
oh yeah, I've always liked that term too. It just sounds like so much fun. Confetti game.
Unless you lose, you don't want it. Like, get this off me. You know what I mean? Like I'd be kicking babies and
like spiders falling from the ceiling.
Yeah, it's Indiana Jones with the snakes. But the Jaguars. I mean, Trevor Lawrence throws 4 picks. Like, what would the Steelers have done with that? Would the Steelers have blown like the 3rd worst playoff lead ever, like the way the Chargers did? Or would they have made more of it? Or would the Steelers have been in the other position and came back and won that? So I got
credit to Peterson for sticking with Trevor Lawrence, because a lot of coaches could have sat him down after the 4 picks, even though they were early in the game. But I was happy for the Jaguars for sure, because this isn't anything crazy. A lot of people thought he was going to be sick. I mean, he was the #1 overall pick, but I definitely was a Trevor Lawrence believer. It was awesome to see him like grow this year and finally get some kind of like shine and like reach a good portion of his potential, I think. And to see him come back the way he did, I mean, that was an awesome finish. I think everybody had a sneaking suspicion once the Jaguars scored their first touchdown that the Chargers might let him back in it. I didn't know if everybody thought they would lose the game. I certainly didn't think they would lose outright, but you could feel it. You could feel it as halftime started that like there was concern on people's mind, whether you were a Chargers fan or not, that the Jaguars were going to be let into this game. And the big part of that is because of Trevor Lawrence and them sticking with Trevor Lawrence. I would have loved to have, I should have done this, but this is poor podcasting. I should have looked up a bunch of tweets from the Jaguars game like before the tide turned, because I'm sure there were definitely some diehard Jaguar Yinzers being like, I knew it, this kid, I knew he didn't have it. I knew it. This kid's a bust. We got to go for CJ Stroud, Bryce Young next year, trade Trevor Lawrence while we can. Like, you name it. You know that was going around as he threw those 4 interceptions. Not only that,
there was that dude that placed the, like, what, $1.4 million bet or whatever on the Chargers, dude. And only came around with, like, yeah.
That's such a good lesson, because I've had that thought watching a game being like, okay, the odds are pretty like heavy in this favor, but if I throw 100, I'd win like $30. And that's a good lesson to not do that. Especially, I mean, he actually,
it was only going to lay like $11,000 or something like that, wasn't it?
He would have won like 1,400, I think. I would never have done that, actually, looking back, because it was the Chargers, man. Of any team to put that bet on, don't put it on the Chargers.
Yeah.
Chargering. Have you ever heard of that? That's a thing.
Bolting. And they bolted. But no, that's it. That's kind of where I was at with this, as far as the teams that were better. What teams can we certainly say all of these teams were better? I don't know, man. It's let's put it this way. Do you think the Chargers would have put up 30 points on the Steelers? Do you think the Jaguars would have put 31 on the Steelers?
Not the way the defense finished out.
The Dolphins 31, the Bills 34. That's just because they played before, but that was without TJ Watt, some moving
Bills
parts.
Is a tough
Kenny's
call.
first start. So I'm not gonna shoot my shot there necessarily and say, oh well, definitely for sure. But 24 with the Bengals too. Like, I think that would have been a pretty back and forth. And now the Bengals
17 from their offense.
Yeah. Well, and that's another point. That's another point to be told too, is that people were like, oh yeah, look, Dolphins put up like 31 points. I'm like, they had a defensive score. They had how many field goals? And you're trying to make a case against Matt Canada based on the defense scoring? Those weren't offensive points. They as a collective, they scored that much. Did you forget TJ Watt was like the only person who scored for the Steelers in the first quarter wildcard game against the Chiefs last year. Like, oh, but do you give Matt Canada credit for that then? You know what I mean? It's there was Mark Madden of all people that we know I don't like. He had a tweet about something like this. He tweets so damn much. Let's see if I could actually find it. But he made it excellent. He made an excellent
It's a content game.
You know what? I have been limiting a little bit of my social media, not a whole lot, but
I've been a big mute this conversation guy lately because, not to brag, but I've got so many followers now these days that like I tweet anything about any kind of opinion towards Matt Canada or the draft needs of the team or Lamar Jackson. There's somebody in there that wants these hands. That they want to argue about what I said.
Lamar Jackson
never fails.
Oh, jeez, man.
So if I put something out there that is even like on the line, like controversial, I mute the conversation almost right away, and then I'll go back and check like later if it has a bunch of traction. I'll like go through comments if I'm bored, but that's how the pros do it, dude. Because you can't be getting bombarded with like, oh, you really think that? Oh, this is what I think, and this is why you're dumb and I'm smart. Like I don't have time for that.
You dummy. You great big dummy. Here it is. I can't believe I'm actually going to do this. When the Steelers offense improves next year because Pickett does, Canada will get no credit. It'll be all Pickett, Tomlin, Pickens, O-line, blah, blah, blah. Everything bad is Canada. Everything good isn't. No Canada fan.
Wait, he started that tweet with when the Steelers offense is good because Pickett improves. He'll get no credit. He literally started that tweet with because the offense will be better because of Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Canada will get no credit.
Yeah, and he says, I'm no Canada fan. I'd have let him go, but the BS is just too thick. And that gets us into our next.
Listen, I said during my rant that I preferenced it by saying we're big Kenny guys here, but there were definitely throws that Kenny didn't look to make at certain parts during the season. You know, I'm all in on Kenny, but it wasn't all Matt Canada. It wasn't all Kenny. It wasn't all Mitch, as much as it pains me to say that. But it was like there were different things. Sometimes it was the offensive line. Like it wasn't all Matt Canada, man. So like I'm not part of that group that he's talking about because I definitely will dish the blame around. I try to do it as much as possible with like the platform that I've been given. I try not to be all like Kenny's flawless. He can do no wrong. He made plenty of mistakes. And I said week 1 that I expected that.
Yeah, and talking about that too is the playoff offenses, and that was, I was talking about the defense and would they have scored as many points, but with the, like, I think that's part of it. Like, I don't see the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson like doing this kind of thing with TJ Watt breathing down his neck, and I don't see, in Trevor Lawrence, yeah, like you make a all pro and. It's just there's so many things to it where people are they're all over the board. Like, didn't they just fire their OC? The Chargers did, like after Eckler.
Lombardi.
Yeah, Joe Lombardi, and after Eckler just scored like the most points and this and that, and it's like, wow, that's going to be really good for Herbert there too. You know what I mean? And good for Jacksonville to come back and do all of that. But I just look now, the Steelers wouldn't have played any of them. It would have been the Bills for sure. But you never know. You go into the next let's say they went into Buffalo and actually pulled off an upset, right? Then who do they end up facing next? Probably the Chiefs, right? Then they got to go to Kansas City because they would have been the 7th seed. But it would have been a tough hill to climb. That would have been a tough hill to climb. So, I mean, based on that, but if they would have ended up in the Ravens spot, if Trubisky wouldn't have threw those picks and they would have been in the 6, they could have certainly beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. And then they would have been playing the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Like, that is doable stuff, man. You would have had a decent amount. I think Steelers fans would have probably made it. Cincinnati was a hot ticket, no doubt. They're excited about their team. They went 30 years without a playoff win. Jacksonville's went forever without having any sort of winning seasons or anything like that. It could always be worse. I always point out, like I've been pointing out, like the Texans, the Browns too. You got to throw them in there, but like the Lions, the Jets, the Dolphins haven't. I still don't think they've won a playoff game since Marino's left. Certainly only been in a couple of them there. So there's a lot of teams. I mean, the Giants finally got in there, and there's other fan bases, the Raiders, that have just been, you want to talk about real mediocrity. You want to say the standard's mediocrity. No, there are definitely more mediocre teams that are out there. So I wouldn't necessarily say the playoff offenses Would they have been better than the Steelers? I wouldn't say that the Steelers were necessarily lighting the world on fire, but with the way the defense would have been playing and with the opportunities that might have been given to the Steelers offense with maybe some short fields and that, I think they could have hung in there in all of these games, to be completely honest, even with the Bills, because the Bills just didn't go out there and smoke the Dolphins like everyone thought. The only thing that's in the back of my head is, yeah, they played once already before, and the Steelers did get housed. But the other part of that too is that divisional game familiarity, having to beat a team a third time. Those are difficult things. Beating them a second time, something, let alone a third time. So I'm just going to leave that at that because we should. Well, you know what? I got one more for you here, and that's going to be who did you think were the biggest surprises for Wildcard Weekend? Were you surprised by any of these outcomes? I think most of it was pretty straightforward. I was probably myself most surprised that the Ravens hung in there as tough as they did with Snoop Huntley. I wasn't surprised by the Giants. I think the Dolphins were a big surprise too. I wanted the Jaguars to win, man. I thought the Jaguars were going to win, and I was surprised. I think all of these games were good, if not great, for the most part. The only one that really stunk was the Cowboys and Buccaneers. And you kind of had that sense that, Tom Brady, the bloom's coming off the rose. So what were you surprised with from the Super
I was pretty drunk
Wildcard
and tired
Weekend?
by the time the Bucs game kicked off Monday night. So by about halftime, I was in bed, ready. I didn't even. What's up?
I was saying, what was that? I didn't catch the beginning part of what you said. You were drunk?
Yeah, for the Buccaneers game, I didn't even catch that much of it because after halftime, I was in bed asleep. So thankfully, I didn't miss out on a whole lot there. That was probably the least surprising thing, was that the Buccaneers got blown out basically by the Cowboys. I'm one of the idiots that knew that all year, and I talked myself into Tom Brady in the playoffs. So that is the biggest non-surprise of the playoffs, I think, was that the Buccaneers truly did suck. We should have known when we beat them with our dual quarterback system that game. But the biggest surprises for me, I know you said they weren't a surprise for you, but the Giants for sure. I'm very happy for the Giants. They're fun to watch, dude. I like their vibe. I really like how Danny Dimes has progressed because he's really good for my athletic quarterback narrative. And there's something about getting a guy the right coaching, because I don't think Daniel Jones is at a point in his career right now, or he may never be, where he's going to give you 300 plus passing yards a week. But mid 200s, low 200s, and running for 50 plus, that's a QB1. That I think it's safe to say they're going to roll with Daniel Jones for the foreseeable future now, as long as he stays healthy and continues this upward trajectory. I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw from the Giants. I had suspicions that the Vikings may lose that game. A lot of this weekend was chalk, meaning a lot of the favorites ended up winning, and the Vikings defense is terrible. So I don't remember if the Vikings were favored or not, but it had to be a close spread because the Giants were viewed as the underdog of the playoffs, really, and the Vikings, most people knew their defense was terrible. So the Giants performance, the Dolphins performance versus the Bills absolutely surprised me, how they were able to hang in the game for a long time. And the Bengals struggling, honestly. I think the Bengals are a good team on paper and on the field, but what the Ravens were able to do as divisional, but hang with them the whole time, and they probably would have won the game if that fumble at the goal line didn't happen. They probably would have won.
Yeah, it was the last score of the game. That was the deciding factor, and it still went up to the wire.
The Bengals definitely surprised me just with how underwhelming they were. They were able to get the win, good for them, but I'd be concerned if I was them about how they're going to do the rest of the playoffs. It's tough, though, because it's a division game. So it's tough because your division rival does know you better. They play you better. The Ravens play everybody hard. I hate them so much. So those are my surprises. If I had to try to zero in on them, because everything else seemed not predictable, but just about how people expected it to go.
Yeah, I hear you there. We got to take a short pause here and remind some of you out there that the Steel City Underground podcast is brought to you by MANSCAPED, those precision-made tools for the family jewels, which now has a brand new addition to the lineup. And so a happy new year from our friends over at MANSCAPED, because the ball is officially dropped, but that doesn't mean you have to drop your Drop the ball on your balls in 2023. You haven't heard this read yet, have you?
No, man, my first time going in raw.
I'll give you the full one, even though it's the same thing. But whether you had a New Year's kiss or not, the leaders in below the waist grooming have you covered for your much needed resolution of bringing sexy back, which we all know I'm trying to do. Matt Canada's trying to do that too. In fact, Matt Canada might be he might be in line for one of the new products here. That is the beard hedger. So you got to check this out. This just came out yesterday, and they still have the performance package, but now you've got a couple of other packages that are available over at Manscaped. These products are the absolute perfect follow-up for after your New Year's gym sessions. So, you know, after you get sweaty and everything else, get one of these going, and you can manscape yourself and everything else for 20% off using the promo code SteelCity20. So put that up on the screen. So check that out over at manscaped.com. That also gets you some free shipping. Let us have a toast for a new year, new you, and a new you with no pubes. And if you have the facial pubes that are going on, you definitely have to check out everything that they have. They have the try out Manscaped's wet goods. They have the ultra premium body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo, body deodorant, just everything, man. They're loaded, and I'm very excited. I know the beard hedger's on its way. I don't quite have the same kind of thing going on that we all got something, you know what I mean? So I got to keep this in line, keep it tamed. I know Brian looks like a wild animal at times, and you know,
yeah, dude, I trim mine all the time. I try to keep it like going this way. You know, I got an electric trimmer myself, thanks to Manscaped. Use that almost not every day, but like every other day, just about, because my hair grows fast, man. Like on my face, my nails, my head, everywhere. I'm like a mini Bigfoot, Littlefoot, like from Land Before Time.
Oh man, you know, you're gonna make me go there now. It's like. Well, anyways, once again, promo code SteelCity20, 20% off free shipping at manscaped.com. Land Before Time, man. You just had to go there. That is one of the most.
Land Before Time.
It's a traumatizing movie for a small child, is it not?
Oh, it's nowhere near as bad as Homeward Bound.
Oh, you know, there's a lot of them, though. Bambi, like, everything is just like, you know.
Your parents die. Get over it.
Yeah.
That's like what they try to tell you.
I know. It's awful. It is awful. And then, like, you go in another direction with this. So you made me forget what I was thinking of now. It's just...
I still tear up when Mufasa goes down, dude. That's one of the hardest things to watch. You know it's coming.
It's tough, too. But the shows, the cartoons... My kid had to be introduced to Wile E. Coyote. It's because Wile E. Coyote was just, like, maybe too much senseless violence. They have them on YouTube, like Warner Brothers or whatever... Looney Tunes is the Warner Brothers side of business. So yeah. You could find them out there, and it was just like, oh my God, these things are great. You know what I mean? Why aren't these just like on regular TV everywhere? Because they just think all of the Acme, you know, because you never know. Maybe Amazon does have like a Roadrunner hunting kit or, you know, industrial size rubber band that some kid's going to try something goofy with, but I doubt they have the Acme products that were there. I was always a fan. Maybe that's why I'm always like with the underdogs. Like I was always like, get that jerk, that bird. Like just get
How do you
root
root for the bad guys?
Yeah.
Sylvester to get Tweety.
No, just Wiley. Like, and I did never understand the Tasmanian Devil. Not that anybody could, but it was just like, I don't get this guy. Like, just settle down, man. Just calm down. Like those Yinzers that are out there. You know. Just,
oh yeah, no, I was a big Taz guy. I love Bugs. I'm an original kind of fan. I love Bugs. He was the star of the show. Tom and Jerry too, but I don't know. Are they Warner Brothers? They're not Looney Tunes. Tom and Jerry.
It might be Warner Brothers. I don't know if they originally were. Anything that's not owned by Disney probably will be soon enough.
Yeah, I know.
Just, wow, they just everything.
They're trying to ruin Scooby-Doo.
They're trying to do all kinds of stuff. Like I don't know. They've got they switched CEOs, so we'll see what they end up doing. Now I gotta give. I'm so far behind on shows, but I did catch the Mandalorian trailer that came out, and I'm just like, okay. I'm down with this. This is,
there we go.
Yeah. The whole, I'm a Star Wars guy. Like I didn't hate everything that was out there, but anyways, jumping back on the case here, unintended, with the Scooby-Doo stuff. I was never a big Scooby-Doo guy though. I hate to say that. So
Oh no, dude.
I watched some of it. I just that wasn't my thing. Wile E. Coyote, man, all about Wile E. Coyote. But anyways, one reason, I don't know, I had this on our to-do list, and I think it's just because people are stupid. The Chase Claypool trade did not net the Steelers the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Not that our listeners or viewers would need to know that, but
So
everyone
people are
keeps
saying that. I wonder if I'm confusing people saying we have 2 first-round picks. I mean, we technically do. It's a 32nd pick.
Yeah, but it is the first pick of the second round. Yeah, because the Miami Dolphins, because they wanted to try and they can, maybe they're still in the Tom Brady sweepstakes now. Don't make the same mistake too early now. But they were tampering with him before the legal tampering period had begun, and they had to forfeit a first round pick, that's pretty steep price if you ask me. So
great time to be a Steeler fan.
Yeah, so just it's always confusing because you go to these different sites. Like I have a Tankathon, which I love the name because it just insinuates that teams are tanking to get certain playoff picks, but they have the accurate order here, and they have the forfeit at pick 21 with Miami. So Miami would have picked 21st. Steelers are at 17, and then the Steelers, let's see, you got to pull up the full order to get it, are actually pick 33 if they keep the original picks as is. But it is, essentially it's 33 minus 1 and 32, but 32 is still that will be the top of the second round. So it won't be a first round pick, but it may be a first round talent. And they may actually get 3 first round talents the way that this is shaking out, because the Steelers have 3 of the top 50 picks. So they have, pick 17.
I love it.
17, 33, 50. And then when you boomerang back around here into
and we took our quarterback last year.
Yeah,
no
and that's
better
what
time to load up.
Yeah, pick 81 as well. So
what's that? Our third?
That would be the third rounder. I haven't seen. I don't know. They have some asterisks here. I wonder if those are in play with like coaching hires and things like that they're now doing, like Rooney Rule type stuff. Might be. There's still going to be some compensatory picks that are going to be thrown into this formula. Trying to think, did the Steelers really lose anybody that they didn't sign someone equal of? I think signing like James Daniels and
Flores, right?
Did. Oh, that might be a good point.
I heard that on Twitter. If they lost him, we get like maybe a third or fourth.
Yeah, but that didn't happen. So I'm just trying to think, because usually, the Steelers are somewhere in this compensatory pick formula.
What about Sutton? He's probably our biggest free agent, right?
Well, no, it would have been. Yeah, right now, but I'm talking about from the year before. So, I mean, they signed they signed, I don't think Mason Cole was that big of a contract, but James Daniels was definitely a pretty decent sized contract. Ogunjobi wouldn't have factored in because it was much later. So there's a certain date where that cuts off. That's why, like not the Steelers, but the Ravens signed Alejandro Villanueva when they did last year. It was like as soon as that day was over, a bunch of free agents that had been sitting there just biding their time to join a new team, they ended up signing with teams because they no longer factored against that compensatory formula. So I'm scratching my noggin here because I'm really trying to think who that they didn't really lose anybody big in free agency. I mean, Juju left, but that wasn't much of a big contract that would balance it out. They might not have anything comp wise coming this year like they usually do in years past. So really, I'm struggling. I can't think of anybody that they did lose like that. You know what I mean? Not anybody that signed a contract somewhere else, which is part of the conditions for that. Like in years past, like Bud Dupree, Javon Hargrave, Mike Hilton, guys like that that leave, and then you don't replace them with a comparable signing. It doesn't matter position, just as you replaced one free agent with another X amount of dollars, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't believe so. And I got to give it one more look see, but that wasn't where I was really heading with that. Where I was really heading is that it's not a first round pick. It's still a second round pick. So you don't get all of the spoils of extending like a 5th-year option or, and you don't have to pay the player as much too, because there is a pay scale that's
such a good thing.
Depending on where they are. I know it's not good for the player, but it's good for the team, and then that's good when you're fans because you want to see the team improve. And in order to do that, you got to fit everything underneath the salary cap. So I was trying to see, didn't really see any major losses when it came to there's undrafted free agents. I'm going to have to go back and I'm racking my brain on it because I can't think of anybody where the Steelers, outside of Juju's like the only guy I could think of. You know, you have players that come and go, but that was really the player. Nobody really went and signed somewhere off of last year's roster because it was kind of carved apart from the year where the salary cap dropped. But that's where everybody's trying to figure out some different things. They have some carryover money that was just published a little bit ago. I wanted to say it was like in that, what did I say, $7-9 million range, maybe. There's some projected ideas. There's no official salary cap that's been named just yet on how high it'll be. There's some projections with that. And of course, there's a couple of moves they can make. They could always shuffle some money around, maybe depending on like some of these contracts that they just gave out, restructure some guys. But Mitch Trubisky is due about $10 million, and they could save $8 million if he's released. And it's like, adios, dude. Yep. So I could see the Steelers anywhere in the ballpark from 17 to 30 million, believe it or not. It really depends on what the cap is called, what the cap is. The rollover is part of that, and you're not going to be able to spend all the way up to that because they're still going to need money in order to sign their rookies. They're going to need money in order to sign players in season if somebody gets hurt, street free agents and whatnot. It's not a ton of cash, you know, but you think of like a guy like a Josh Jackson, for example, probably making 700,000, 800,000 or something like that. So they got to have a little bit of money sitting on the side there. But really, I can't think of any key losses there. That kind of jumps us over to our next topic of discussion, and that would be, I hate getting into this because I think some of this will be addressed in free agency, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff with the biggest draft needs. And you know where I'm going with this. Again, Joey Porter Jr. It will immediately be a Steeler. It reminds me of Willie Gay, like Willie Gay's boy that plays for the Chiefs, you know?
That's not his son.
Oh, it's not his son. What is it? Cousin or somebody like that. But there was a bloodline. Like it was the same
I didn't know
name.
they were related.
I thought they were related.
I got no clue on that.
Oh, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Anybody who's played for the Steelers, really, if it was like Hardy Nickerson's kid or somebody like that, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But
yeah, but Joey Porter Jr. is good.
What's that?
He's good though.
Yeah, but we still don't know. Look. Everybody's insinuating the Steelers are going to take him, number one, because of name value, bloodlines. It's the same thing with the Tremaine Edmonds stuff we were talking about. We don't even know if Tremaine Edmonds will enter free agency. I was looking at Buffalo's money. They got a lot of money put into Matt Milano, obviously Von Miller, and it depends on who else they want to keep. They might be able to. Yeah, they might be able to squeeze some things in there, but eventually they got to make some sacrifices after giving Josh Allen the bag, you know? But people immediately insinuate that Terrell Edmonds is going to recruit him to the Steelers. Terrell Edmonds isn't guaranteed to come back to the Steelers either. And there's different free agents where, okay, if they re-sign Cam Sutton, for example, and they re-sign Terrell Edmonds, and they have Levi Wallace, and they don't move Ahkello Witherspoon, or we don't know about William Jackson III. William Jackson III is eating up a pretty significant portion of that money as well with the projected cap.
Oh, yeah, if they keep him, he's expensive. That's a big if, though.
Yeah, it's a very big if. So what I'm getting at is that it's a little annoying. I'm going to pull it up from over the cap just so I'm not blowing. Because right now somebody will say, "Where did you get that? Where'd you get that dollar figure from?" I'm not seeing that. Well,
I think he's making like $13 million next year, so it's big if.
Yeah, he's like in the top 10 paid. He's got like a 12.1 cap hit that could be completely saved if you're looking at this. This is based on this doesn't have the rollover money in it at all. And I believe this is based on just a guesstimate of what the salary cap might be. They're thinking in the 230 million-ish range, which would give the Steelers 1.6 million. So that's just a guess. They still have some dead money that's on the books, really sadly here, Stephon Tuitt. Cam Hayward has 22 million of a cap number. He could be extended, and that money kind of just kind of spread out. Mika and TJ are in those top ones. People will say, well, cut Deontay Johnson. Not so fast. They would actually take a negative 10.5. He ain't go, or I'm sorry, that was Mika's. 4.6 is the savings. And that's not going to happen real quick. Shooks isn't going anywhere. But like I said, William Jackson III, 12.1. Miles Jack, was he the answer? $8 million savings if something isn't done there. James Daniels is there. He'll be fine. Mitchell Trubisky, $8 million if he's released. Akilla Witherspoon, $4 million if he's released. The same with Levi Wallace. So other than that, the rest of it is kind of just like digging for change in your couch. So there's a couple of names there where they'll massage and move this around. I don't anticipate William Jackson. I don't anticipate the Steelers having that full 12 hit. And then they had that carryover money as well. I'm going to go try and look that up. So keeping that in mind, they would have more than enough corners on the roster if they stand pat right now. And let's say they brought Sutton back. Or let's say they bring Sutton back and they don't bring WJ3 back.
I don't know. I think that's when you get into an argument because I think Sutton's really good, but Levi Wallace is only on for one more year. And Witherspoon, we didn't see him all year. And when we did, he was hurt. So I still think with the current room, I would want a cornerback drafted high.
Maybe.
That's just me.
But again, too, like I've got a couple of things too to say about that, and I'm gonna try and pull up my own tweets here when it comes to the draft and when it comes to not only corners but also tackles. The Steelers just they don't really. That's not really their style, so to speak.
Yeah, well, they can get him at 32 then.
32, so 33, second round.
32.
I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they just going to leave it in and it's forfeit? Like, I need to know I need to know what you're doing, Goodell. Well, we'll never figure that out. We don't know what he's doing. So, here's some of the numbers on the first round. 2016, Artie Burns became the first corner that the Steelers took in the first round in 18 years. The highest offensive tackles in the last decade, Marcus Gilbert taken with pick 63. He was a second rounder. That was 2011, and then they followed up the next year with Mike Adams with pick 56. Before that, Marvell Smith, 38 overall, year 2000. This is a team that they don't go after tackles in the draft. Corner, prior to Burns, that was Chad Scott, 1997, 24th overall. And then to go to the other tackles,
Jermaine's pretty high.
Yeah, he was. I remember everybody was pretty high on him when he was drafted back then. Jermaine Stevens in 96, the year before, was a tackle taken with the 29th overall pick. 1992, pretty good dude who actually ended up, we were talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. He ended up there later. Leon Searcy, 11th overall. The only other first-round offensive tackle taken since these are the only guys taken since 1968. Mike Taylor, 1968. You could count them on one hand. All of them, corners and tackles. There is a new regime, so it makes me wonder what are the Steelers' biggest draft needs. And I know people are really looking at tackle. I am looking at guard. Somebody asked me center, and you know how I feel about center. I don't think Mason Cole played bad at all. A lot of people felt he played way above the line. If he could continue going, great. If he could slide over to guard, doesn't mean you're going to take a center with the first round pick. Usually three centers go in the top 100. So if you want one of the top three and you feel that they're NFL starter capable and they're an upgrade over Mason Cole, you have 4 picks in the top 100 to maybe shoot your shot. Otherwise, I could see them going for somebody like a David DeCastro. I think the position that most needs replaced, other than inside linebacker, they might need one of those guys too. I'm looking at left line. I think Leal. I think it depends on Ogunjobi if they bring Ogunjobi back. I think Leal is going to be a guy there, and that's a guy that you still got to start looking down the road with Cam Hayward and how much longer he might play. Do you take a guy now? Do you think Cam's going to play at least 2 more seasons? Do you wait until the following season to take a guy?
Connor Hayward just said 3 or 4.
Yeah, well, he could, and those positions usually lend. What's Cam now? 31? I got to look.
That sounds right.
That does sound right. I'm going to find out. But that was kind of my point is I think they could even go best available. And it really depends on how free agency. Oh, geez, he's 33.
For sure. You know what's beautiful about that being able to go best available and having 3 picks in the top 50 is all 3 of those picks could be best player available.
Yeah. And it could all be starters.
Yes, they probably will be, dude. That's what I've been trying to tell people on Twitter all the time already is that, dude, everybody's so hung up on the first round pick. I can guarantee you, barring injury, picks 1, 2, and 3, 1, 32, and 50, they all are going to start or play a lot as rookies. It happens every year since 2016. The Steelers' top 3 picks, sometimes more, play as rookies or they start. I'm losing my voice because I get so like hyped up about the whole like, oh, well, the first round pick, if they don't nail that, dude, I'm telling you, the second and third round pick will play as well. We have 2 second round picks.
Yeah. And that never used to be the case, by the way.
I know. It really is like Bud Dupree's draft is like when it started, really. It's like when the defensive players started getting out there right away.
Yeah, they were rotating him in. They still had Arthur Moats. Jarvis Jones was still a part of that.
Yeah.
James Harrison, the ageless wonder that he was. But really that draft where it was like Burns, Davis, and Hargrave. That's like where it turned around. They were like Hargrave was the first defensive line starter in 30 years. Like week 1. Like
that was 2016. That's what I mean. That was like really when they were like, okay, we can do this, I guess. We'll put 3 rookies out there if we have to.
Yeah.
And I mean, you even saw it with what was that? Najee, Freiermuth, Kendrick Green, Dan Moore. They all started right away. And then this past year with Kenny and Pickens and Connor Hayward.
Leal. Yeah. Always forgetting about Leal because he got hurt.
Yeah, I know, right?
And Moore, I don't think was ever intended to be the like a starter from day one or whatever. But our boy Cam Hayward, 33, going to be 34 in May. Could he play to 36 or 37? I want to say Kiesel played to 37, 38. He was getting up to even 39. Some of the defensive linemen, they'll play a little longer. It's not quite
37, I think, is that magic number.
Mm-hmm. It could definitely work. Offensive linemen, some of them hang in there just as long in the trenches as well. So, but you got to have that in the back of your mind and how quick are you going to pull the trigger on an eventual replacement. You don't want to draft a guy in the first round right now and then he sits for 3 years and then he's going to be in a contract year when he has to play. That won't work out too well. They'll stack it with the contracts is what
Jordan Love.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was against even back when Rudolph never got his chance because Ben wasn't going anywhere. And I don't think Cam's going anywhere, no matter what people want to read into some of his words. And if it does happen, I don't think he holds the team hostage or anything. They'll know well enough in advance that they can make a move, free agency or otherwise. And maybe they bring Larry back, and it's Larry and Leal. And that'll be interesting, to say the least. Ogunjobi's still pretty young as well.
I'm pro bringing Larry O back. He had just good enough of a season that I don't think he'll get like $50 million on the market. So we might be able to bring him back.
Yeah, and I think he was a little banged up still.
Definitely.
And, he was always on the injury reports, so you didn't get to see like maybe his full potential through the season. And I could definitely see him returning. He's 28, he's going to be 29 in June. He's still a young enough pup, again, by defensive lineman standards. So that's not exactly where I want to go with the draft. Like I'm not looking at either of those spots. You can fortify those spots, but I definitely think, and everybody just looks at Dan Moore, and we've said this enough, but I think Kevin Dotson's really, we'll put it this way. The Steelers had a competition between Dotson and Kendrick Green.
Yeah.
For that starting spot. Kendrick Green didn't get a helmet all year. He did not get a helmet. He was inactive every single game.
Facts.
And
Facts.
Your job was in jeopardy for a guy who they weren't even like washing his jersey. Like, I'm sorry, but I think something's going to happen there first. It's not to say that they won't try to improve with Dan Moore. You probably saw my tweet about Taylor Lewan too, who's getting up there in age. What is he, like 33? Had a couple of knee surgeries, missed like 34 games in 4 seasons or something.
I love
like
Taylor
that.
Lewan, dude. Yeah, I want Taylor Lewan here. He's like me as a lineman. He's got the beard going, the tattoos, the hair. He's so fun. Does the podcast. How do you not want Taylor Lewan?
Because he's not going to be like an answer. He's going to be like a 1 year
fix the contract real easy. Listen to this: injury clauses, incentives, easy peasy. He won't do this. I'm sure he'll stay in Tennessee, but if he were to leave, any team that signs that guy is going to be like, okay, dude, we'll sign you X amount of million, but if you get hurt, you get this, like almost nothing. If this happens, this happens. So I would not be opposed at all to bringing that in, because that would also help minimize the need. If he came in to start, like, this is so far-fetched because I don't think he's leaving Tennessee, but if he came in to start, Dan Moore could take a backseat role, and then we could like draft a franchise tackle like 2 years from now. I don't know, dude, but I have a tin hat foil theory that he might actually retire. Like, I'm having fun with with the talk about him coming here, because the one like Barstool fan has been like tagging him and stuff, trying to get him to come here. But I know in good faith, just from like watching his show and listening to others, he's like down a lot of weight, and he's gonna have to make a choice soon if he wants to like put it back on in time to keep playing. And he's a successful guy now off the field, so he might just retire. But if he plays, yeah, I'm open to it. There it is. That's Kenny Pickett, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Like Jersey Jerry, and he's putting that up, and
Those are colleagues.
yeah, I get it, and he's a Steelers fan, which is always cool to see also. But no, the thing that I'd put out with the bromance thing is that Taylor Lewan turns 32 in July, 34 games missed in the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, it
So
hasn't
it's
been
ugly.
great
It's
for
about half
Lewan.
of it. Scheduled to make $14.8 million with the Titans.
I mean, I wouldn't leave.
They might have to force that issue. Now, you want to talk about like Jalen Ramsey, but I think Jalen Ramsey's a bit pricey. The Steelers have never really invested their money in that sort of way, going after the big fish in the small pond kind of thing. If he was available for a trade, what's it going to take? Probably, I don't know. Do the Rams even like draft picks? Like, I don't think you could offer them draft picks. They seem like they're allergic to them.
Pick 32 for Jalen Ramsey sounds kind of good, but add it, you don't know how much I think his cap hit isn't that much, but next year, not 2023, but 2024, he's super expensive. So it isn't outside the realm of possibility. I would say it sounds really stupid, but until they traded for Minka, and his circumstances were different, but Ramsey wouldn't be too expensive. And I'm not going to say I would hate that either, but it's really, 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 really unrealistic.
Wow, dude. 2023, 24, and 25. 3 more years on his contract work. The cap numbers are 25, 26, and 22. But really what you got to look at is what the Rams owe him in cap savings. So I want to say he's still got base salary here that would be paid. So he'd be 17, 14 and a half, and 15 and a half.
I don't know where I got 5, dude. Okay, so he'd be 17 million this year then if we want to trade for him.
Yeah, that's a little steep. We're talking about, you definitely have to make some moves then to fit somebody.
William Jackson
like that
would definitely be gone.
Oh yeah, that's half the paycheck right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, or practically all of it. What I say, Jackson was at like 12 something, just north of 12.
12.1.
Yeah, something like that. So not quite half. I was looking at that cap number. You can't do the cap number, but most everything on Ramsey's side here is prorated bonus, and then there's roster bonus as well. So roster bonus would still be due to the Steelers an extra $4 million, but he doesn't have that.
I know it's ridiculous, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, no, that one's a little more fun than Lewan. I mean, signing Taylor Lewan means that more than likely you are going to have Dan Moore play. That's
at some point, yeah.
And so why are you benching him when you're just going to have him play like 6 to 10 games out of the year?
Yeah,
so,
I feel that.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on that. That's still part of where we're talking with the draft needs, but we also get into some of the free agency talk and leaping back over to Devin Bush, because I was saying like the Steelers still need an inside linebacker for all intents and purposes. Bush was very much demoted. I know it was against division opponents where they're playing run heavy teams like the Ravens and the Browns, and they're going to attack that a lot differently because Bush has been pretty much terrible at filling in the holes and pursuing. He just hasn't been the same player post injury as he was pre-injury, and they're going to find somebody else, whether that's an Edmonds, whether there's like a Leighton Vander Esch or somebody like that ends up out there. But just think about like the off-ball linebackers and how pretty terrible they've been all the way around the league in each of the last few drafts. I mean, Patrick Queen, the Ravens defense just wasn't what they wanted to do. They went out and got Roquan Smith and then gave him like a record deal because he's been the one dude that's actually come out of the draft that's been like above the line. But you heard Rashaan Evans' name just the other day with that Bengals game. I was like, wow, that guy's still in the league. Like, that was a guy that the Steelers, we're talking about the Titans. The Titans don't pick him a couple of picks before the Steelers are on the clock. We're probably talking about him being, in the category of that B word of draft bust when it comes to Steelers top picks. And it's like that, I think like Vander Esch is in that same category. Let me see. I want to say
Edmonds.
he was like 1 year deals. Edmonds, I don't know if he's a bust. Is he above the line? Like,
No. He's not a bust. Tremaine, the linebacker.
Yeah. I know. I'm just, I'm spitballing here. Devin White's had up and downs, but he's been better overall. Maybe more consistent than a Devin Bush.
He had his peak when they hit the Super Bowl. He had a pretty rough year this year, but he was humming during the Super Bowl year. But this past year, he wasn't too good.
Yeah, and you just think about some of those players, and I don't know. JOK had that heart or whatever ticker issue when Cleveland ended up getting them in the
Notre Dame
second round. Yeah, so maybe you find somebody like that. I don't know.
I saw a mock draft where we took Simpson from Clemson with either our second pick or our second pick. He's a athletic off-ball linebacker from Clemson, and this time of year, it's so loose and nothing's really serious. At any mock draft I read, if I see a guy, I'll start watching him a little bit, and he's pretty nice. So I warmed up to the idea of getting a linebacker within our top few picks, because if he could come in and start right away and be a difference maker, that would be, that'd be huge for this defense.
Yeah, in much the same breath as who was I just thinking of? I don't know, but I was thinking of some other names like Josie Jewell that popped up in the past. Matt Wilson.
Zaven Collins has been kind of quiet on the Cardinals. He really hasn't done that much since being in the NFL, unless I'm mistaken on that, but I almost never hear his name. He was a real hot name coming out of Tulsa, Tulane.
Something like that, wasn't it? I can't remember now. And who was he paired with? I'm trying to think. Who's his counterpart? The Cardinals defense really stunk.
Oh, they have Isaiah Simmons. He's gotten better over time, but he had a pretty slow start.
Yeah, and I want to say Quartermain is down in Jacksonville, and it's just been drafting that position is something where they might not shoot their shot so high, and I don't know exactly who's going to be available in free agency there either. But you made this point earlier. It's aren't you feeling a lot better that the quarterback situation is settled? Kenny fell right to where the Steelers didn't have to do anything crazy and mortgage their future. And you could talk about all of these other things that go in places and pieces around you. You might not be happy about Matt Canada and that news, but from there, man, it's just this is pretty, for the most part, pretty smooth sailing, with the exception of you got some of the Jags that are out there that are going to say their piece about Brock Purdy, and they're going to say, well, see, why doesn't Kenny Pickett throw all of these touchdown passes and do all of this stuff? And this is what happens when you have an offensive mind. Kyle Shanahan, do you see the players that are, I'm not trying to put down Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris or Deontay Johnson or George Pickens, but they're still young guys.
You're not putting anybody down by saying George Kittle and Deebo Samuel are amazing weapons to have, and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk, who went for 1,000 yards, the quietest 1,000-yard receiving season I think I've ever heard. When I saw during the playoff game he was over 1,000 yards, I was like, oh, Brandon Ayuk hit 1,000 yards. And listen, dude, 32 teams passed on Brock Purdy, including the Niners, 7 times. So I'm not going to hold it to the Steelers or really any team for passing on Brock Purdy, because nobody saw this coming. I'm happy for the kid. I'm not going to take anything away from him. What he's doing is awesome. But coaching definitely helps. Talent around him definitely helps. The fact he has nothing to lose definitely helps. He's third string, and he came in with nobody else behind him. So going to let it fly. I think what he's done is pretty remarkable. He's super fun to watch, and I'm rooting for them low-key. But, the people that are like, oh, this is where we should have gone in the draft. I'm like, buddy, nobody took this guy. It isn't like the Ravens took him right behind us, or the Titans took him in the 3rd round instead of Malik Willis. Nobody took this guy until the last pick in the draft.
262. He was the very last pick of the draft, and nobody could have even this is like Tom Brady rareness. If it continues, and we don't know. We keep talking about turning into a pumpkin and everything like that. He's got an awesome offensive line around him as well. Let's not kid ourselves.
I didn't even mention that. Yeah, he's got arguably the best one.
And the defense isn't too shabby either. The Niners have had their pieces in place.
It's not too shabby. It's the best.
I know, but there's like another team where, they lose Robert Salah or somebody like that, and they just keep going. And there's been patience.
I forgot he was there.
With Shanahan. Yeah, there's patience with Shanahan, because okay, he got them to the Super Bowl, and they put all that money in Jimmy G and everything like that. They just went after Trey Lance. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do next season. I don't think, but I have to remind everyone, you're gonna really laugh about this. It's like Kyle Shanahan was winning games with CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins as well. So
he was there was a period of time where Nick Mullins was the it guy. I mean, that only lasted like 3 weeks. So he had
because
a
everybody got hurt.
Than Purdy. What's up?
Everybody got hurt on that team. Like they've always been snake bitten. So it's like, I got to say, you got to pump your brakes on that, because teams will figure Purdy out sooner or later. And I don't know that Seattle is necessarily the team that you want to be like, oh, look what he just did against them. You know what I mean? That one kind of, it just sticks in the back of my head, because this shouldn't be any indictment on Kenny Pickett, and for that matter, even Matt Canada. I know people will, speak their piece or whatever. Some of the teams you talk about, like, people talk about the Steelers, right? And they talk about post-bye, and they talk about, well, look who they faced. Look who their competition was. Look at the teams they were up against. Brock Purdy was up against the Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Seattle Seahawks, Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals, Seahawks again, and then, well, Seahawks was that wild card game. So he didn't have like a whole bunch of top flight defense. Now he's going to be up against the Dallas Cowboys with like Micah Parsons, and Dan Quinn is their coordinator there.
Marcus Lawrence, Diggs.
Yeah, that's gonna be a much more formidable challenge. Speaking of which, Parsons, he gets drafted by the Steelers. Wasn't intended to be an edge guy, and he's just like uber talented and can play anywhere. It's just, that's another.
Yeah, you want to talk about a natural talent, dude. That is crazy. That how he just decided he was going to be an edge rusher instead.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this instead. You know what I mean? Like, guys just don't do that. I mean, work with
smart edge rushers make way more money than middle linebackers.
Yeah, that's true too. Because he's probably jumping, doing cartwheels and flips in his head, thinking about that. Hassan Reddick, not kind of the same difference there too. So just real quick, we were talking about Purdy, but Cowboys, can they win on the road in San Fran? They kind of got the short end of the stick here because they played this stupid Monday night game. Not a fan of the Monday nights. So, I like the Cowboys going into it. I think they give a little bit more pressure. You got to do it on the road. Dak just played his best game ever. Oh man, I mean, they're rolling.
I'm excited for the history behind it. I like the matchup. Niners, Cowboys. That's just classic. It's going to be easy on the eyes.
The old Charles Haley, who's he playing for right now?
Yeah, Deion Sanders.
Or Deion. Yeah, Deion's another one. Terrell Owens too. It's funny how those guys floated back and forth between different franchises. I mean, give me the Cowboys. Give me the Bills at home against the Bengals and missing potentially 3 of their starting offensive linemen. Did the Giants play spoiler against the Eagles? Another division opponent. If the Eagles, has Hurts been sitting for too long? This is the team with the most sacks in the NFL this year.
I'll be rooting for the Giants.
Yeah, it's hard not to root for the Giants and Saquon and Danny Dimes. And
screw Philadelphia.
Oh, I know. Screw Philadelphia. But I'm looking at one home team here. I could definitely see a slugfest with the Giants. They play the same way. I think they match up. I think it's a bad matchup for the Eagles. The Eagles got enough weapons. They had the bye. They have the rest. It's tough for me to say, but I mean, we haven't seen Jalen Hurts in a while. Is he going to come out there? Is he going to be rusty? So that's tough for me. I the upset special. I don't have the upset special with Jacksonville. They do anything remotely close to what they just did the last weekend against the Chiefs in GEHA Field or whatever they are now, old Arrowhead. They'll get smoked. The defense, I think they're just gonna get tired out. I don't think the offense, they're gonna have a lot of pressure on them.
The Chiefs, they need a perfect game. Flawless.
They're gonna be in a shootout situation. So the 2 AFC teams I could see winning at home. Chiefs Bills matchup potentially being played in Atlanta. NFL really pushing that issue, man. And then Giants over Eagles, Cowboys over Niners. What you got? About the same or different?
Yeah, I'd say about the same. I'm pretty chalk on all these except for the Giants game. I will be pulling for them, and I do see how they can win with Hurts being in and out of the lineup. And just Philly being the Goliath to this David story, and the vibes the Giants are riding, I could see them getting past the Eagles. I may sound really dumb for that come Monday,
I know.
but that's my only really upset pick. I think the rest of the games will be good. That's all I'm hoping for. But yeah, I like chalk all the way around otherwise.
Yeah, I was pretty much the same. And nope, I just wasn't feeling the Vikings at all. And they tend to always get like beat at home. And there's another franchise. I guess you call them mediocre. Everybody's mediocre unless you hoist a trophy, though. Let's be real. It's not going to happen. And look at the Rams. Rams are already sitting at home. So they just they get to enjoy the one from last year. But that'll do it for us. A little long in the tooth here because this is the only show for this week. There won't be another one. I'm not going to follow up with where to watch some of these games and whatnot over the weekend. It's like they're pretty much all available wherever your usual suspects. So I was trying to I was going to pull that up real quick for anybody who really did want that information, but I think they're primarily all Fox and CBS games now because
we're in the thick of it now.
Oh, NBC's got the first one, 4:30 Saturday. That's
they got to have one.
The Jags and Chiefs. Fox has 8:15 with the Giants and Eagles. Sunday, 3 o'clock, CBS, Bengals, Bills, and then Fox has the other NFC game, 6:30. He's showing off. That was Kutch, right? Yep. Andrew McCutcheon back. Talk about like playing when you're in your 30s, man, or mid to late 30s. It's like that's about the only thing Nutting could have done to sell some tickets.
Oh yeah, I'm the fat rat taking the cheese, baby. If we can't win, give us the Promised Prince back.
Yeah, we win a couple here or there. It's just, I felt like that was the one guy. He was justified for some time. Where did he first go? The Giants? And he wasn't doing too hot.
McCutcheon?
Yeah.
He was decent when he left, and then just like steady, like decline, basically, like average. Like, I mean, he'll be all right with us. He won't have like the toughest lineup to crack.
Yeah, that's true. He probably. I'm not going to go there. I was going to say he could be the offensive coordinator.
Hey, I mean, Steelers fans would be psyched.
But no, you know what? We didn't actually mention much more about Byron Leftwich. There was a little bit of this is just for our 2%ers because everyone else might have just shut off real quick. But with Byron Leftwich, I was getting into these debates. Well, they could still sign him to something else. I'm like, is he looking for lateral movement or demotion or anything like that? I know Flores came in. And he's like a position coach. But Byron Leftwich. That's
the only reason why I could see it, because of Brian Flores.
Yeah,
what happened with him, but that'd be it.
And Mike Tomlin, will he be lying in wait for a year? Is he like a passing game coordinator, offensive quality control or something like that? To give him some bullshit title? I don't know.
It's sticky right now. It's a little sticky right now.
Yeah. So, will he be added to the staff? We just know Matt Canada's not going. Also, this is interesting to say too. It wasn't actually said that Matt Canada would remain as the offensive coordinator. That's just kind of the assumption.
And he's staying on the staff. That's true. That's true.
And, Bruce Arians is hanging around, Tom Coughlin hanging around. These guys, they're just hanging around. So, all right, man, that'll do it for us. Zach, thanks, man. Thanks for spending your time. I'll give you some extra meaty content. Got the pen. Find somewhere around here. I could spill water, but I don't want to clean it up. So, anyways, my name's Joe and his name's Zach. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Like we said, only show. We'll come back next week. Maybe we'll be on more of a regular schedule. I know we had the holiday day off on Monday as well. So we're in the off season now. We're trying to lick our wounds and recover. And we've got some more things to talk about. This one actually ended up being a lot more than I thought we were going to talk about. But you know what, my friend, whenever we get together and talk some Steelers, talk some football, we can go as long as we'd like.
Can't shut us up.
No, can't shut us up. So appreciate you. Appreciate all of yins out there that support Steel City Underground. Until next time, my name's Joe and his name is Zach. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.